Well, it is that time, you guys. Welcome to Faith, Love, and Coffee. I am Trish,
I'm Jamie. I had to
and
sing
we
that.
are here today to talk about something very important, you guys. This month is Autistic Awareness Month, and today we are actually talking about autism and how to support our autistic community. Now,
Yay.
Jamie, um, this is very close and dear to her heart. She is a special ed teacher, so she's going to be talking the majority of the time, and I will interject. But we're having some great conversation, like behind the scenes, and we want to bring that to you guys. So, without further ado, let's get started. Jamie, what do you
Yay.
got for us today?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for allowing me to discuss this on this platform. It's such a big deal because,
Mhm.
April is Autism Awareness Month and it goes beyond just being aware. And so for me, my biggest thing is, the acceptance that every one of us are different. Like, and I mean, just not just in the autistic community, but just in general. And
Right.
so I always tell people just please embrace the differences we have. It doesn't make anybody weird or not normal. It's just we're different. And so I thank you for letting me, discuss this here today. And hopefully it will help someone feel better about just autism in general or um, students or people with disabilities. Hopefully that everybody will just embrace those differences. But what I want to start with just really quickly is kind of what is autism, like what does it look like, what do people think it is, right? And so many people have differences of opinions, but basically it's just kind of a neurological difference. It's not a disease or a disorder to be cured. It will, if you have autism, you will have it. It does not go away. Um, and so, what that looks like is that the autistic person perceives the world differently, communicates differently, acts with everything around them, in a different way. And
Right.
so, but I want y'all to know that two autistic people are not the same. No two autistic people are the same. Everybody does things in their way. So you can't really just say, oh, this is how autism looks. It's just a wide variety of things. Um, and
Just
so,
like us. We're not, from a cookie cutter,
no,
you know?
exactly. And the other thing I wanted to tell you guys that I was sharing with my sister before we started is that several adults that I know are now being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in their 30s, in their 40s. And it's not people like, what? That's a shock. I mean, we all have characteristics of the autism spectrum disorder. And I'm not an expert in diagnosing that disorder, but we all have some of those characteristics. And so, in
Mhm.
order to receive that diagnosis, I'm sure you have to meet, other criteria that, equals that diagnosis. But for me, I feel like we all have characteristics. So it's kind of like, look in the mirror before you start, saying something crazy because you
And
might
that
be
should be for everything.
yes,
Seriously.
you might be communicating differently and somebody's like, okay, um,
Mhm.
and so that to me was the biggest, like, hey, autism is really just a neurological difference. It's how the brain works and how people communicate with us and
Right.
how they interact with the world. And so once you understand that, it's kind of easier. Um, and I say that from a teacher perspective because that's the majority of where I've been able to see these things. Um, and it's true. No, to autistic students, people are the same. They do things, we all do things in a different way. And so I did want to start there. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is we talk about awareness, and I think we all are kind of aware that autism exists. We all know, we've all heard this probably. Um, but now it's more of how do you support those people with
Mhm.
autism because especially y'all, I'm going to tell you the little ones that become diagnosed at like 3 years old, 4 years old, it is a hard pill to swallow for parents. Um and that's where I think a lot of that support is needed and how do we do that? As a community, not just teachers, people in the classrooms, just in the community, right?
Mhm.
And when I say that, you may a kid in a grocery store or in the mall or wherever you go and do your outings behaving a certain way and you are as a parent you're like, oh my gosh, if my kid acted that way I would be so embarrassed or I would be like ready to pop them on the mouth or the behind or whatever, but you don't know really
Exactly.
what's going on,
Exactly.
right?
I actually had to tell my daughter, which is a great point that you just brought up. Very good point, because we were at the grocery store one day and all of a sudden this child, could have been like 4 years old, was his mom was trying to tell him no, that he couldn't have a specific something, okay? And he just melted down and you could hear him on the other end of the store. And so my daughter, who's 14, she's like, "Oh, well, that kid needs," and I'm like, I said, "Let's not be too quick." I said, "You do not know what that parent is going through, and you don't know if something's going on with that child." I said, "And that maybe is their way to communicate how they feel about that, but it's going to take their mom a little bit of time to calm them down." I
Oh
said,
yeah.
"So you can't just, say, hey, I would do this." And I'm guilty because many years ago, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
me
I
too.
would have been like, oh my gosh, that kid needs a pop on the behind, they're acting out, that kind of thing. But now, honestly, I have to take a step back and then teach my kid,
Mhm.
hey, you can't be judgmental
Yes,
because you
me
never
too.
know what that other person is going through and you're not walking in their shoes. You're
Mm-mm.
not walking through their life and you don't know what their home life is like.
And I
So,
was the same way. I'm so glad you brought up that story because we're all
yes.
I think we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. And I don't think anybody should have to walk around has a shirt that says I'm autistic, like
No,
labeled, right?
absolutely not.
So it's the whole accepting that we're all different and
Mhm.
that is not your child to
Right.
be concerned with how the parent unless the parent is like of course being abusive, different story.
Right.
But you know your child and how your child behaves, so that's really your main concern, right?
Mhm.
But I think I'm so glad you had that story because I think we've all been in the store and have had that happening.
I just feel like we all
um
just need to stay in our lane.
yes,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
unless you see
So,
something just totally
yeah,
like,
totally
ooh,
off. Like,
yeah, but
like,
I
listen, you
think
guys, my mom, if she saw some mom like really like beating her kid or something like that, she would actually walk out to their car and take a
yes,
picture of their license number because she
yes,
just felt so bad for the kid. But honestly, you don't know what's happening at home and you can only
no,
hope for the best. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, when it comes to this kind of situation, however, again, you cannot judge because you honestly do not know what's happening.
yeah,
So, we could have all we could be in our own feelings and we could say, oh, well, this, that, and the other, but we really don't know.
no,
We
it
really don't.
is it's a tough one to navigate, and when I say that is because there's no criteria of what that looks like in like as a whole.
Yeah.
Everyone every autistic person is different in the way they express themselves and show um their the way they communicate. I'm sorry.
No,
Um
no, no. That's fine.
and um so okay, back to the reason why I guess like I said this is so important because of the support that autistic people need. And what that looks like, it looks like it in different ways, right? You may not experience this at your own home. You don't have
Mhm.
a child with autism. You may not experience it at school because you might not be a teacher. You might not know what it looks like. But at work, you might see this
Mhm.
and in the community, right? And so, um, the reason why I say it's so important to support those people with autism is because a lot of times they are, how's the word? I don't want to say not judged, but some of the people in their lives don't know how to
Approach
support
them.
them. Yeah, approach,
Right.
support, all
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's really important to, if someone tells you that, because I, like I said, y'all, I worked with a teacher who was maybe mid-30s who was just diagnosed within the last couple of years. So once he told us, we were like, "Okay, cool. Like, what's like, what are your things? What are your things that bother you? What are the things? How can we help you?" Because
Mhm.
it can become a lot. And even someone, I'm gonna put this out there too, someone with ADHD, someone with OCD, and other disabilities, or like not even disabilities, more like just disorders,
Diagnosis.
right? Yeah,
Right.
diagnosis. I'm gonna say disorder
Diagnosis,
because it's
yeah.
not a disability. I'd say diagnosis or disorder.
Yeah. Mhm.
Some of them kind of like overflow and like mimic each other. So for someone who is OCD and wants everything kind of like this, right?
Mhm.
An autistic person or a person with autism may want this, like very similar stuff. So
Right.
it's actually just supporting, people in their ways in general. But I think with this ASD, autism spectrum disorder, it's become more clear that it's not just kids anymore. It's adults being diagnosed,
Yeah.
teenagers being diagnosed, and they've lived their whole lives like,
Yeah.
what is happening?
Well,
Um,
and you're so right about that too, because okay, so like my husband is ADHD, my daughter is ADHD.
mhm,
Now, when we're talking about the first time, like the first time that she was diagnosed, oh my gosh, you guys, I cried like I failed her, and it had nothing to do with me. I mean, I taught her her ABCs, her colors, that kind of thing and stuff like that, but she learns differently. And because she learns differently and they barely got it. In other words, if she had not, I mean, she was so like she would look straight at you and you would think that she was learning. They said that she had hid so well behind her eyes that they almost did not catch the diagnosis. And that's something that if your kid is and this is ADHD. Now it can be part of autism, and she does have her outburst, especially when we get onto her. Then she goes into a tirade of, "Oh my God, you don't love me," blah blah blah.
emotions.
Sometimes people will say that's a typical teenage response, but she was doing that also when she was younger.
Yeah.
And that could have been her way of, acting out and, that kind of thing and trying to communicate with us. And me being a person who doesn't have, I'm not depressed. I don't have ADHD. I don't have any of those things. Kind of hard for me to understand
Mhm.
what she was going through, or even my husband. I mean, when he said, "Okay, I'm ADHD, she's ADHD," we had to really work on how to support her
Mhm.
because even when she was diagnosed, I think it was back in fourth grade. But they didn't have, and we had her in private school, but they didn't have, um, they couldn't do IEPs or 504s or anything like
Mhm.
that in private school. So we put her in public school where she could be supported. And oh
Mhm.
my goodness, the difference that made. It really, really did make a difference.
It does.
So, but yes, and again, moms out there, dads out there, listen, when your child is being diagnosed, it has nothing to do with you. Okay. I cried and cried and cried because again, I thought I was a failure and I'm not. I could only try to do the things to help her. And, now she's a thriving eighth grader. She'll be in ninth grade next year. Oh my God, she'll be in high school. Good Lord. So, I mean, it's not something that you're failing to do. It's just a matter
Mhm.
of helping your child get to where they need to be. So,
Yes.
just with that, but Jamie, I'll let you continue. I just wanted to share that
No, I
story
love
real
that.
quick. So,
No, I
yes.
love that because I have a friend, who's also an educator, been in education forever, actually about to defend her doctoral dissertation in a couple of weeks.
Oh,
Yay!
okay. Yay.
Shout out to Tiffany. Um,
Yes.
but her son, when he was, given the diagnosis, she told us, that it was almost like she went through the stages of grief. She was in denial, then she was angry, and y'all, those are the only 2 stages of grief I know, because I can't hardly ever get out of those, stages. So, but she went through all of those stages, um, and now looking back, she was like, "Gosh, why did I do that?" Like, I mean, it's just a natural reaction that you think, "Oh, my kid is not normal." But again, before this we even started this segment, I was like, "What is normal anyway? I
Right.
don't know anybody who is normal, whatever normal means anymore. What is that?"
Right.
Um, I think Webster's dictionary may have even deleted it from vocabulary because what is it? But I do understand that you want your child to, hit those milestones and whatever, doctors claim they should be doing and whatever. But if they
Yeah.
don't, it's okay. Like they will. I mean, her son is a thriving, gonna be ninth grader.
Whoop,
Um,
whoop.
and he's great. I mean, so anyway, I say all that to say that, the community needs support, in a way that just says, "Hey, you're accepted. You're just like the rest of us. No, nothing. I mean, you're neurologically different in the way you do things." And like I said, a lot of it, for you guys that may work with a person with autism, understand that sometimes, um, noises can affect them.
Mhm.
Lighting can affect, someone. And I think also now a lot of us might be like that. Just,
Mhm.
even as we're getting older, things just start to, not feel right in our areas. And so those are the biggest things that, um, we've noticed, and that the, schedules are a big deal too. This is for
Mhm.
work, home, school. Schedules and routines are a huge thing. And again, I say that because that's what they claim is typical for an autistic person, but I think a lot of us still want a routine. Still, a lot of us don't like change. I mean, I know I don't, um, and I never really did. I want to know like what is happening. I don't like spur of the moment type stuff.
And I think
Um,
you have something there too, because, I think that the lack of routine in this house is probably um not supporting Trinity as much as, we can be. So
mhm.
we're actually going to there's a new um board out there, which is digital, which is kind of cool, and it hangs on your wall. And if I can find it, I'll put the link
Oh,
down
man,
at the in the
sounds cool.
down in the I'll post it for you guys. But you can put everything on there, and digital is more fun than something just being written down, right? So I think that with all the different colors they have and everything else, it's color. You can color code things. It's all digital, and it stays on your wall. And they just, it's also, how do you say, touch?
Like
You
touchscreen?
Yeah, it's a touch screen that you can sit there and, move things
Oh
around
my
or
gosh.
check off or anything else like that. And so I'll get that information for you guys because I thought that was really interesting. But, it looked like the kids were happy and everything else like that. And
That would
like
be
I needed
amazing.
to create something like that for her. Like, like when you get home, it's, maybe 4:30 to 5:30 you're doing homework, and then from 5:30 to 6 you're doing, putting up dishes or helping with house chores, that
Yes.
kind of thing. And then like at 9 o'clock, all digital, you know, um, everything's turned off, and then now we're starting to get
Yeah.
ready for bed because, her
Yeah.
bedtime's at 10. So,
Nice.
yeah, and I think that could probably help us with us too as adults, because
I know. So,
yeah, because
I think your homework right now is to find that.
right? I'm trying to figure it out. Listen, I will get that for you guys. I promise, and I will put it in
Yes.
the chat box for
That
you guys.
sounds amazing. That would help
Yeah,
teachers also in the classrooms, not
yeah.
just for, like, students with autism. It is, like, it's so helpful for teachers to have, and some do have it written down, and some may have a digital way, but
Mhm.
who
But
knows?
I think
Somebody
it's
may
like
not.
I think it's around now it is a little pricey, but honestly, for that peace of mind and that to get your kid on a schedule and have it
Yeah,
fun for them and everything, I think it would be worth it. I think it's like between 250 and $300.
okay.
Not bad, but and also if you get it off Amazon, you guys, again, I'm not getting any kind of, referrals or anything else. If I would have,
Right.
I've already had the link already up for you guys.
Right. Not a
But
sponsor, they're
yeah,
not
not a
sponsoring.
sponsor. But it with Amazon, sometimes you can pay it off in a couple of months
Oh,
rather
yeah.
than just all at once. So hey, it
Yes.
may be an investment for y'all to look into.
Yes. It's like a
Anyway,
6 months no interest type thing, I think they
yeah,
have.
it could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. It just depends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I would check it out, but I will get that link for you guys here shortly.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. That sounds amazing. Um, okay, and so I've talked about ways to support autistic people. And again, I was also telling my sister before this segment,
Mhm.
some people with autism want to be referred to a certain way, like a autistic person or a person with autism. It just depends. And so that's another way you can support those people in your lives, to ask them, what do you prefer? And they may not prefer anything. It just may be Jamie. Like, stop thinking that, putting that on me. Just, I'm Jamie. Um, but there are so many ways to support the community. And a lot of that is just understanding
Yeah.
what they need, what they need. Um, and so let's see, I'm going to go to this next part is we talk about advocacy and yeah. So advocating, it might look a little different in everybody's world, right? So for teachers, I'm going to speak on the teacher side. We advocate for our students all the time, not just students with autism, it is across the board. But as far as those who are not in education and maybe in um, the workforce, or even in the just community in general, just try to be aware of how you are interacting with these people who are, neurologically different. And what I mean by that is sometimes people with autism don't make eye contact. And for some people in some generations, that's like disrespect. And it's not, or they're not telling you the truth if they don't look you in the eyes. And so it's those kind of things. Just be aware that some of those things that we've been told to look for in all these years of like growing up and whatnot, that for people with autism, it's not going to look that way. Like, they could dead on be telling you the truth, but they may not look you in the eyes because that's just how they communicate. It's and
Mhm.
I'm bad about it too. I don't like looking people in the eyes, but um just know that there are things about people you might not understand, but accept that that's how they are, right? And that's why I say it's a lot of it's just about acceptance. Just accept that people are different. And then if you can, there's a lot of autistic led organizations. Like I was telling my sister before we came on, for parents, we provide autistic, autism support.
Mhm.
We have regional offices that is just dedicated to how to support your student with autism, and that's typically in their IEP that they would have in school. But as a just everyday person, there's a lot of organizations that need help with people just in general, young kids, teenagers, adults who have autism spectrum disorder. Um,
Mhm.
and you'll see a lot of them, like I've heard brain balance commercials where this student was just all over the place and they helped this student, you know, be successful in school. So there's a lot of ways you can, involve yourself in the community. And I'm not suggesting like run out there and do a whole lot of whatever. But just know that if you have that desire, it's out there. The options are out there
Mhm.
to help the community, the autistic
Mhm.
community. Um,
And
so
one thing you may want to also take into consideration, if your child does have an IEP or a 504, and I just learned this myself, which was very incredible. It not only takes you through your entire school career, including college, but it also goes through with your work career. So,
mhm,
and it
yes,
that was amazing to me that, you know,
absolutely.
if you share if you share it, and just like I think I just read it, like having this um diagnosis is powerful. Okay, so use it. Don't just sit on it and say, "Okay, I
Absolutely.
think I can do this." No, if it's yours to use, use it.
Mhm.
Okay, that will get you through life and will make things a little bit easier for you to be able to thrive. Have a healthy work life, or even just go on and have and live your life to the fullest, but use it. Parents,
That's
if you're out
true.
there like navigating with your kids and stuff, I thought this was really great. I know Trinity really doesn't she really doesn't want to go to college, but she's just in eighth grade. She'll probably change her mind several times before, you
Yeah,
know, she gets out of high school, but you never know. This will follow her, which I am grateful for because
it
she
will.
does learn differently. She does things differently, and
Mhm.
that's not going to stop even in the workplace.
No.
So just know that this can help um as they navigate, being an adult and going on with their work life. Okay.
Yes,
So
100%.
I
I'm
just
so
wanted
glad
to
you
make that.
mentioned that. No, I'm
Yes.
so glad you mentioned that because it's true. Um, and then I don't know if you notice either when you apply for a job, it asks, do you have a disability? And most of us put
Hmm.
no because, we haven't been
Yes.
diagnosed with
Hmm.
one.
Right.
But when you click yes, then your employer will ask you, what
Yeah.
kind of supports do you need? Um, and that's where that like extra time to complete work will come into play. So like they
Mhm.
know, okay, if this project is due, 2 months from now, I need to let this person know right now so they have that time, to get it
Right.
done. Things like that. And so I'm glad you mentioned that because that's for
And
sure it's
and
huge.
that is a good question to ask, autistic people, or people with autism.
Hmm.
How can I help support you better?
Oh yeah.
You know, and
That
even
is
if
the
it's
biggest thing.
now, even if
Yeah.
it's, like if they're in grade school or they're in high school or whatever, what can I do to support you?
Hmm.
What do you like? What do you not like? How can, we make this a little bit easier for you to understand so that they can grasp the concept and then move on?
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a great question. And also, it gives them a feeling of being in charge. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Hmm.
that's what all of us want to be. We just want to be in charge of our emotions, our
Hmm.
feelings, who we are in this life, and how we move forward.
For me, I
So
guess it's about being included.
yeah, and that
Like
too, absolutely.
it just 'cause, and I'm gonna keep this brief because 'cause we're at about 30 minutes, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking if we go to 45, it's okay if we finish whatever. But, y'all, back in the day, before this became, um, as large as it is now, and when I
Mhm.
say large, I mean that in a good way because now we know more, but back in the day, students, especially in schools and just at home, kids at home, if they showed any of these characteristics, they were shunned or abused, and I don't mean abused, but, like, they may have been hit and told to, like, "Stop doing that," because
Mhm.
we have family members, like, older, younger,
Mhm.
all over, who have been given this diagnosis, and we have a our mom's cousin, so he's much older than us, but he would, like, pace back and forth and talk to himself, and so his dad thought that's not normal, quote,
Mhm.
unquote, "normal," and so he would hit him and tell him to stop, and, so and he would do other things that, our mom has told us that he would get in trouble for, and
Yeah.
now that we have all of this information and all this research has been done, I don't think he's ever technically been given the diagnosis. He didn't ever go find out. But we all are kind of like, I wonder if, he's just on the
Mhm.
spectrum.
Mhm.
Um, and so now though that we have all of this information and people are um accepting this more and more, the um the inclusion, the equity, all that is coming into play when it used to not. So
Mhm.
I'm so relieved because those students used to be in another room away from everybody.
Yeah.
And now these students are in the classroom with their peers,
Mhm.
learning all kinds of things and ways. And then you have some who are still, in another room because they need more help with social skills and things like that.
Right.
But the fact that we have all of this knowledge is just, it's exciting to see that, okay, you know what, it's not as a big deal in a
Mhm.
negative way, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's a huge deal because
Mhm.
some of my favorite students, I've told, I think my mom and maybe my sister, some of my favorite students in the classroom are students with ASD, and they just, I mean, it's, I can't explain it. And so when I come across people who say, "Oh, I've been recently diagnosed," I'm like, "Okay." I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I need to go find out too, because I think I have some characteristics that could qualify.
Right.
Um, and when I say that, it's not, I'm not meaning to be ugly. It's just
No.
that, I mean, it's such a wide spectrum that I think we all have pieces that we could qualify if
Mhm.
given the opportunity. So that's why I guess today's topic was so big because in April, teachers, in April, we wear blue for autism acceptance, autism awareness, and we wear blue.
Mhm.
I have plenty of shirts that I've, made that have all this stuff. But it really is about, acceptance, advocating, being supportive, all of those things, just in general. So, um, I don't have, the only thing left that I really have to say is if you really, want to be, involved in some sort of way, um, there's a few ways. And one of the ways that was suggested online, and I'm going to take this a step further, it says, asking your school or workplace about accessibility. You guys,
Mhm.
if you feel inclined to support teachers, and I say teachers in the school, um, sign up to be a substitute or a volunteer. And I don't mean every day, all day, just even if it's just a party in the special education classroom. Of course, you'll go through all the process of the hiring. They'll check your background and make sure you're good. But if you are so inclined to see what that looks like, that is an option as far as the school goes. The to be beyond thrilled to have you in there to help. Um, the other thing that we were talking about before we hopped on is to read a book or, watch a movie. It says by an autistic author or possibly even director, because you'd be surprised how many famous people
Mhm.
um, have been diagnosed with ASD. But we did say, and this is probably for the older generations, of course, the movie we know as, I mean, mom went to shoot she took me to the movie theater to watch it, is Rain Man. It
Yep.
came out in 1988, and that was the first real, like, "Whoa, this dude is I mean, brilliant, and he
Yes.
had his ways about him, but nobody was like nobody really understood it, right? Especially his
Right.
brother. His brother used to get so
Mad.
peeved,
Upset.
like, yeah, get so upset. And so that's one. If you have not watched that, especially this younger generation, they probably have not. Um, the other movie that I also recommend is What's Eating Gilbert Grape with my favorite
Yes.
Leonardo DiCaprio, and that's 1993. So even just saying those 2 dates out loud, it's
Mhm.
been around. Like, this is not something brand new. This is it's
I
been
think
around.
actually Johnny Depp did another one because he was in that one, I do believe, What's Eating Gilbert Grape. But
Yes.
he also did Benny and June,
Yes.
which
Yes.
was about that as well. So
Yes.
you have 3 great movies right there, you guys, and, with
Yes.
excellent actors. I mean, excellent
Oh,
actors. They
yeah.
just did they did them good. I mean, they did them really well. So, we
So there's
encourage
one that
you.
came up too, real quick before, because I think I'm gonna
Yeah,
try to find this one. It's just from 2022, so more like, recent
okay.
time. It says, "I used to be famous." It's
Oh,
released on Netflix, so I may try to go find that. I used to be famous. Yeah.
okay.
Um, and so those are some ways, you guys. And some of you may be out here like, what does this have to do with me? I don't know anyone who has been diagnosed with this. I'm not a teacher. I'm not this, that, and the other. But I can guarantee wherever you do your shopping, wherever you go in a social setting, there are people out there you have interacted with who have been diagnosed with ASD. They don't walk
Mhm.
around, like I said, with a hat and a shirt expressing that, but you have seen it in your community. Trust me. So,
Yes.
the reason why I, like I said, took such a like, please let me talk about this is one, it is autism awareness, but it really should be all year. Like, just
Yes.
embrace the differences in people, embrace that we're all different and we're all lovely. And as long as nobody is hurting you or your family, then
Right?
it's all good. So I'm gonna
Well,
he used to be famous.
thank you so much for sharing all this information with us because I know that you, again, very near and dear to your heart. You're a special ed teacher, and I know that you have been lovingly taking care of these people for many years. Um, but we want to thank you for being here today with us on Faith, Love, and Coffee. If you found this helpful, please share on all of our platforms. We are here on YouTube. We have our Facebook page.
Mm,
We do have TikTok, and I'm thinking we may go ahead and do Instagram as well. So, just be looking for us. And if you find that anybody else can benefit from this, by all means, please. Tell them about it. Subscribe yourself. Follow us too, if you haven't done that yet. Um, so I think the next time, remember that um, what is this? That the autistic community is not being about being perfect, is it, Jamie?
mm-mm. No, no, none of
Mhm.
us are in general.
No.
And so this, I guess, what I could say at the like closing of this is
Mhm.
that it says like if you're autistic yourself or know someone with autism, we see you, you matter, you belong. All of that
Absolutely.
is true. All of that is true. But supporting the autistic community isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, open, and willing to learn and willing to accept those differences.
Hmm. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so for next episode, you guys, next Sunday is Easter Sunday. Yay. But
It is.
420 has so many meanings. I'm not sure. I don't think and I told you that Jamie is a teacher. I actually am a recruiter for a medical cannabis company. So 420 is big for us. It is Earth Day, or it is close to Earth Day, and it is also Easter. So,
Lots to talk
but
about.
but it's going to be lots to talk about. But we're also going to be talking about, ways we can show up for our community for Earth Day, and that, we're just wanting to share on ways that we can help, or what we can do for our own families, to help with Earth Day, like cleaning up, kind of like that spring cleaning kind of vibe. um,
Yes.
so yes, so until then, you guys, keep faith, spread love, and savor every sip of life. Until the next time, take care and keep brewing positivity. We'll see you the next time, you guys. Bye.
Bye.